friends, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Katrina with Homegrown Florida, and this is my garden bestie, Jacqueline from Wild Floridian. And today we're going to be answering all of your questions. We put out a bunch of requests for questions on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, the whole nine. And you guys came in with a lot. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through some of the answers to those questions while we talk about how to get the most out of your garden. So when it comes to planning, I think there's a few like concepts you have to understand first when it comes to Florida gardening, right? Like I always say that there is cold weather, warm weather, which most of our northern friends agree with, but then I say we also have hot weather.
100% agree. We have the three: cold, warm, and hot weather crops that you could be growing throughout the year.
And the timing that we do them, you have to think about. You did a video, I remember many years ago, where you talked about like understanding the seasons of Florida.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved that explanation. It's really, it was really, really good. Because, you know, if you're from up north or someplace and you're coming down here and you're thinking that you need to go according to like traditional seasons, that's not really how it works here.
Right, because we're subtropical, tropical. So our seasons are just essentially different. We joke we're just hot and hotter.
Hot and hotter.
But technically we do have seasons. It's just most people aren't taught them. And then the second part is that because they're not taught them, they're just not in tune with them. But when you start paying more attention, you do see it. Like I think most of this, if I tell you this one season, y'all agree, summer is monsoon season.
Yeah.
And that's literal. It's a technical term, monsoon season.
Monsoon season because of the rain. Yeah.
Because we go through tropical monsoons. So you're getting lots of inches of rain. It's very hot. And then it's also very humid, and the sun is very intense in Florida.
You can't be out for more than a couple of minutes and you're starting to burn.
Yeah, and you need sun protection no matter how dark your skin is.
Right.
So that's summer. That's pretty easy. I think a lot of people then think about the other seasons. They get confused because the other seasons kind of are similar-ish to northern, but they're at totally different timings. So basically, we're going through winter is drought season, so it's the opposite of monsoon.
Right.
But this is also when it would be the most like a temperate climate, right? Like your Northeast, your Midwest, right?
It would be their spring. Like if you are from the Midwest and you're going to grow like, you know, broccolis and stuff like that, you're growing that in early spring up there. Down here, we do that in winter.
Right. Yeah. And then spring and fall, they have differences. I would argue fall is hurricane season.
Yeah.
And spring is technically actually fire season.
And drought. Like we get a lot of, well, I guess that would.
Yeah. So we're drought and then we're fire season. And so the reason spring's fire season is because you're in drought season, but because we're at the tail end of drought season, stuff's really dry. But the monsoon season's coming, so you're getting the thunderstorms, lightning starting to strike, fires start breaking out. And that's a natural part of Florida. So you got drought season, fire season, monsoon season, hurricane season, and those are our 4 seasons. I'm gonna declare them right now.
She's gonna die laughing at this one. Okay, so this is how I determined. This is my non-technical, scientific way of determining when I need to plant different things. If I'm wearing sleeves, it's cool season. If I'm wearing a tank top, it's warm season. And what they don't see on the video, if I'm wearing just a sports bra, that is hot season.
Okay. Well, you can't look to my clothing because a lot of you commented that I wear full-length jean pants no matter the time of the year, even the summer.
I don't understand how she does that.
But with our seasons, right, you start lining up the crops with the seasons. So as you come out of summer and into fall, we're doing warm weather crops.
And I think it probably shocks people when we start tomatoes.
I guess
that's a really big one that most people...
because tomatoes start basically the vegetable season for us.
And it starts in August. Like you are starting seeds in August if you're starting from seed for tomatoes. And a lot of people are like, but tomatoes don't grow in summer. And that's true. And August is in summer. But you have to start them that early to get them to a mature state where they're flowering and stuff at the point when they're going to be in the weather and the temperatures that they actually like. So don't think about, you know, that tomatoes don't like to grow in August. You need to think about what they're going to want to grow in 2 months from now after you start them.
Right. And then you're going to head out of that season, and we're actually going to head in then to cold weather crops.
Right.
So this is like your lettuces, your radishes, your beets, your broccolis. Oh, perfect, right? And then we're going to swing back around to the warm weather crops. Yeah. So we're going to come out of winter and head right back into warm weather crops, which is one of the cool things about Florida because
we got 2 times a year that we can grow them.
Right.
Most of the rest of the country, they grow them during summer.
And we get them twice. Which is why Florida is the #1 producer for fresh tomatoes. Fun fact.
Did not know that. Did not know that.
So then after we come back out of that second warm season in the winter time /
when stuff
early spring
dying, you'll notice it. Like a lot of your warm weathers in spring are going to start to look really bad.
Stressed.
That's when you know you really need to start moving into the hot weather crops.
And these are going to be tropical plants.
Tropicals, yep. Like sweet potatoes.
So they originate out of Africa, tropics, the Caribbean. They're coming out of Central and South America, like the northern parts of South America. Yep. And these are the things that are going to survive and thrive in Florida.
Yeah, actually do well.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about the difference between spring and fall, because there are some differences in what you grow. Now, technically, according to all the different like UF and stuff, they say you can grow them in spring or fall, all the warm weathers. But I think that there is certain ones that grow.
I would agree, but I would say like the high level name, right? Like tomatoes grow both times.
Yeah, tomatoes, peppers grow both times. What I would say, like, I find that corn and watermelon and melons and cucumbers prefer to grow from a cooler time frame to a warmer time frame. So when you're looking at those, you want to grow them actually in spring. I don't grow them personally in fall, ever.
So I just tried corn in fall. I have a theory, and based on what because we're #1 producer of fresh sweet corn also, fun fact. But I have a theory that fall might be the more preferred time.
You think?
And it's because of the rain. But I could see but the squashes, I would think the other way. So I don't know. This is kind of one of
what I find with the squashes is that when we're in our drought season, they have less disease. So when you're coming out of spring and into summer, or out of winter and into spring, they do better then, because you have less disease, less rainfall, those kinds of things. And the pests are down.
That's what I was going to say, because usually they get killed pretty early by pests when you do it in the warm fall season.
Right. So and cucumbers kind of fall into the same thing when it comes to squash.
With tomatoes and peppers, what varieties I pick. There's some that will go both seasons, but then there are other varieties I would pick different ones because of how much rain, but also mostly the bug pressure.
The pest pressure.
Just because fall, we're coming out of pest pressure. So when the plant's just growing, right?
It doesn't matter so much.
It's not as the challenge. The challenge is that tomato fruit going to finish? Is that pepper fruit going to finish? And as we head out, that means when they're producing, we're heading out of that weather, versus in spring, you're heading into that weather. Bigger tomatoes in the fall. With peppers, ones that have less capsaicin, basically less bite to them.
Less spice, yeah.
But the ones that have more of a bite, I would argue bite, because they're sweet peppers. Like
they're
peppers,
sweet.
But they have something in them that the bugs just don't like them.
Yeah.
And then smaller tomatoes, but you still get I think less than a pound. Yeah. That's my number for if it grows less than a pound per fruit, that's springtime.
And I think when it comes to, I would say tomatoes is the big one. It depends on where you're at in Florida.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a line drawn between your house and my house in terms of I get frosts. I got one 7 weeks early just recently. Yeah. And it shocks a lot of people in Florida that I even had a frost, because a lot of people didn't. But where I live, something about the coast and something about that area, I'm a little bit south of Ocala.
You have a slight amount of elevation.
A slight amount of elevation, and it's just enough to cause more frost. So for me, I have to rush to get my tomatoes before winter. Whereas you can start them, and then yours grow all winter, right?
Yeah, but I have to start a little bit later, because we're gonna just stay hotter, and that's one of the tricky parts that a lot of people, when they hear just anybody's tomato advice, is that they're like, oh, well, they can handle 90 degrees. It's not that they can't handle 90 degrees. It's that we never cool down at night.
Right.
So we're at 90, and then we're going to drop to 83.
Right.
And it's just going to stay warm and hot for them. And so they don't get the relief. So I have to start them a little bit later. And then the sun intensity is just...
And then you start to have problems when the humidity comes in. You start to have problems with the pollination, the stickiness of the pollen and stuff, and whether it's going to drop or not. And then you get these problems with germinate. It's just,
So you can just tell that as we cool down that little bit, and I'm talking 3 degrees, 5
don't
degrees.
Take much.
You'll hear me whine in the summertime because I can't take it. And then it just drops 3 degrees. And I'm like, oh, it's amazing. And that's
lovely.
But guess who also does the same thing? All my tomatoes. They'll sit there and be like, oh, and then all of a sudden that 3 degrees happens. I'm happier, and they just start shooting up.
Yeah.
They'll just hang out.
And a lot of the times, we don't think about the fact that you can just let your plants hang out. Like if you know you're headed into a good spot, like I've had people ask me like, oh, my tomatoes aren't doing good. They started them in August and they're like, they're not doing good. They're just sitting there. I think I'm going to pull them. I'm like, don't pull them.
No.
Because the minute that we get a nice cool front that comes through and gives them a little bit of relief. And when I say cool front, guys, I'm not talking like, I'm talking 70s, like high 70s at night. Like, yeah. It doesn't require a lot. Like, you can still be in the 90s during the day. It's really like nighttime. I've learned a lot that it's nighttime temperatures. They can handle a lot during the day. They can look pretty awful during the day too. But at night, if they get a little bit of reprieve and they have some chance to like kind of recuperate from that situation, they do really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of mulch though. Make sure I do a lot of mulch.
Yeah. So when I'm thinking about the year, that's how I'm structuring it and thinking about it. It's just kind of those general beats. And it's not just for vegetables. I'm starting to wrap my head around even flowers of thinking them as warm weather, hot weather, cold weather, and then just like your year-round flowers, and starting to categorize them more like that, because it's really just about understanding those temperatures, the rainfall, the sun intensity, and keeping them on that same track.
And then, you know, each garden is different. So whether you're in South Florida or whether you're in North Florida, and whether you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, there is slight differences. So you can take this advice and then you can test it out in your garden and adapt based on what you find. Because your area gets like a lot of rain. We've talked about this before. She gets like nonstop rain and I get like nonstop drought.
Well, and after talking with other people in St. Pete, because I live in St. Petersburg, it's not St. Pete gets more rain. It's this part of St. Pete. Because there are other people not very far from me, and they are getting significantly less rain. And
yeah, like I'm in Spring Hill. Brooksville's right next to me, and Brooksville gets a ton of rain. But something about my little spot in Spring Hill, it just skirts right around us every time. So you have to take that into account, because rain, wind, heat intensity, and nighttime temperatures are probably like the biggest things when it comes to planting. There was a lot of questions around when do you start certain vegetables, how do you plan your garden, where things need to go. I think there's a lot of really good free resources out there that you don't have to like pay exorbitant amount of monies to get this information. So the one that stands out to me the most is going to be IFAS.
University's IFAS, the agricultural group.
Which is like University of Florida?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Go Gators.
So they have a really great agricultural department, and they put out a lot of information, but it is kind of like strewn across different websites.
It is challenging to find it.
Yes.
But you can find it.
So here's some more free resources that you can use.
One of the best free resources is our videos.
Yeah, guys.
We're constantly telling you guys what to plant each month.
It's such a big question, especially down here in Florida, of when to plant things, what to plant things, that both of us put out monthly videos, and I also put out short form videos. If you're more of an Instagram girly, TikTok person, I put out short ones over there too. Every single month, beginning of the month. I know you do long form on YouTube as well. Beginning of the month, every single month. And then we have some from previous years.
Well, I think I've got 4 years worth now at this point. Usually
she's been doing this
for a while.
She's been doing this for a while. So yeah, the videos are really beneficial. If you just want to get things really, really quickly, you can check out my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com, because right on the front page, I have a, time frame. Basically, you click on that and it breaks it by the different seasons, and it tells you exactly when to start each one. It's very high level. It's not like super detailed or anything, but if you just need to go and like grab a piece of information, it's really good. So we just talked about free resources, but there is a resource that's also important, which is your time. Like, how do you be the most productive in your garden without spending days in the garden? And I think it would
Who
shock.
has time?
Nobody has time for that.
I'm not doing that.
No, I retired a few years back, but I used to be in IT, and I worked very long hours, and I commuted 3 hours a day. It was pretty awful, but I still had a garden, and I have a lot of people ask, like, how do you do it when you have, these full-time jobs, you have kids, you have all these other responsibilities. You have to get the laundry done. You got to get the inside, you got to get cooking done. You got to get cleaning done. Like there's so much that's demanding on our time. How much time are we spending in the garden? And I think it would shock most people that I dedicate 1 day a week to spending in the garden, and I only spend a few hours, probably 2 or 3 2 or 3 hours. But you know me, I like the fussy vegetables, so I just, it is like my happy place to be out there. So I could probably get it done in an hour, but I kind of like being out there for like 2 or 3 hours. What about you?
So right, with my background from the factory, minimum 50-hour weeks, 10 hours of commuting, plus I've got special needs child. With me, I got to have stuff that like it's set and forget most of the time. And then when I do maintenance on a weekly basis, it's got to be not that much. And honestly, I'm about on average for most weeks about an hour.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. Yeah. And probably, if I think about it, it's probably a little bit, maybe it's cumulatively 2 hours because there is the dogs of it, because like I let my dogs out and then I'll just be like poking at a plant.
I think if you want to get really good at gardening, get yourself a dog.
That has to go to the bathroom near your garden.
So my dogs go out, and every morning I take them out, and while they're, because mine, I don't know, they just have to find the perfect spot. You know, so they're out there for like 30 minutes. And so while they're out there, I'm just kind of wandering around, and I pick this little weed or that little weed, and I don't do a lot, but I'm just checking on everybody. And if I see something that's out of place, I hop on my phone and I just mark like, I need to do this. I throw it in my reminders.
Yeah, so I would say cumulatively with the probably hanging out with the dogs in the garden, it's probably 2 hours of actual doing anything. But most of the heavy lifting is an hour. And then I would say, I mean, you guys usually see these on the channel. As videos, as projects. Those are the ones that usually are like the big chunks of hours. Like if I'm going to build a bunch of raised garden beds or mulch a whole area or build a trellis or build a whole wall like I did.
She does big projects. Like,
you know, those are the ones that become like 4 hours, 8 hours, but they're planned in on the weekend, especially with my husband. So most of the time it's really only an hour. And I think what keeps it that way is if starting smaller when you begin, setting up your systems, like so that you don't have
like
to,
your automations.
Yeah, and also but like developing good soil so your plant's healthy, because then there's not a lot to do with a lot of the plants other than prune, harvest. I know you used to run around with a headlamp at one point. I don't know if you still do that.
I don't do it anymore. No.
Yeah, so I never did any of that stuff. So because I was like, look, if you cannot survive,
I had like a slug issue for a while, so I was constantly going around with a headlamp. I don't really do it anymore. They've calmed down. So I had a good year, so they calmed down, so I don't do it anymore.
Well, I think
but once again, that's out when I'm walking the dogs. Like I'll put the headlamp on while they're going to the.
So I like, other than going around pruning and then picking weeds every now and then, or resetting an area, it's not a lot of time. I think that's the thing is that I wonder what's taking people a lot of time.
So let's talk projects, right? Because I think you brought up, I think a lot of people think about all the big projects, and I have a different take. Like you do some really big projects. The way we do it in my family, my husband is, you haven't seen him much on the channel, but he's a ginger with very fair skin. He gets, skin cancer very, very easily. So we have to be really careful about spending too much time. And he always helps me in the garden. So we always say, we're going to do one project a year and we're going to do it in winter. And we're going to do it after, because, the shade, like right now we're sitting in a shady spot. We always do it from a certain time to a certain time. So we have to break our projects into small pieces. So if we want to build a new bed, that is a winter project, and we have to schedule it for 1 to 2 hours on a certain day. So we break it into these small pieces, and it seems so small, but if you just do 1 or 2 projects a year, and you've been at this like 10 years, like we have, like you'll have all of the systems in place. And then, then you don't have to have these giant projects all at once. You don't have to, like the idea that you need to start out with 15 raised beds with drip irrigation and like all the things, you don't have to do all that. You don't have to do all that.
So I'm a big picture girly, and that's probably why I tend to do big projects. But honestly, if you look this year, I haven't done any big projects.
Yeah.
A lot of it was figuring out my garden and the structure of my garden. I don't know. Next year might have another big project.
You also had a hurricane. She had a couple hurricanes.
Yeah, there was a lot of recovering from.
Yeah.
But then was my husband always was like, but start smaller, Jacqueline, because that's one of the things I had to do. So that's actually what a lot of this year was, is I pulled back on doing projects because I wanted to get each space good.
Right.
And I think
like a foundation.
And that's what I think I put a lot of structure in the last couple years, but this year was really about really getting the spaces to work well. And I think if you've seen the vegetable garden this year has, like, if you look at my January video versus January video, February versus February, all the way through December, this year versus last year, you can see how much better the vegetable garden looks.
Yeah.
Front yard, backyard. The flower beds, I don't know if you can see as much of it, but the flowers in general, much more maintained. I mean, you've seen my house a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Very different. So, and I know talking with some other people who've been with the channel and hanging out for a long time, I know a lot of them said that they really liked hearing that from me, that I was pulling back and just working on simplifying, because I had a lot of life change that happened this year. All good stuff, but we did have some and I needed to focus more on family than I did on the garden. So I needed to make sure like more stuff was, I set it up and then I don't really touch it a lot.
Right. And there's ways also, that you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of that's like with plant choice.
Plant choice is
right.
A big
They're
one,
plant, like, I mean, if you like flipping a whiskey barrel of flowers every month, like that's cool. You can do that, but also
you don't have to though.
But you don't have to. And you don't have to flip whole flower beds every month or every season or anything like that. You can pick plants that are going to hang around for the year. So I was very strategic and thoughtful about what I picked, but also there's a couple spaces that I didn't do anything with this whole year, especially those front beds that I built in the cottage garden project last year. And I only just now replanted the front trellises once I finally understood what I was going to do with them.
Yeah, like I have multiple green stalks, right? Like I have so many. I became one of those people, but they're not all filled right now.
That's true. When I was there last time, they weren't.
Yeah, they're not all filled. It's okay to like pull back for a second and like redo your foundation, because when things, it's real easy to let gardening like take over your whole life. And trust me, as somebody who absolutely loves it, like I love when it takes over my whole life, but then you have real life stuff that happens that you have to be focused on. So you need to be able to kind of pull back. If you can't plant every single one of your garden beds, that's okay. Yeah. Plant the ones that you can and you know that you can take care of. Cover the rest of them with some mulch. Come back when you're ready. Yeah. Like you don't have to be doing all these things. I feel like there's like this idea out there that when you are going to start a garden that you need to have everything set up. You need every raised bed. You need the perfect soil. You need the perfect, like you don't need to do all that. Just start small, one small project at a time with whatever time frame that makes sense for you and your family and your situation. You don't have to do it all. Now, let's talk like resources. So we gave resources with that. I'm gonna say my biggest resource is gonna be the Seed Time app. I love that thing. I not only put like the plants in that I use, but it also is all the cultivation. So it reminds me when I need to plant things. It reminds me when I need to like weed, when I need to fertilize. So, but I'm digital.
Yeah, I'm a paper person, girl. So my planner is actually, I mean, it's a big book.
That's what I do.
If anyone's heard the conversations because every year it doesn't just like get a new year and date. It actually gets new tips and stuff in it.
It's a whole revamp.
And one of the questions I ask every year when I go to update it is, what did I have to look up on the internet over and over again? And that's what over the years have gotten added into the planner. So now that like, because my goal is I shouldn't have to reach for other things as I go throughout the year to remind me to do things. So that's like really one of the things. Anything I have to write in there, that's like on one of the pages that you guys would look up information, like that gets reviewed when I update it each year. Because I'm like, why did I have to write that down? Not my tracking stuff, not my making a project stuff, but anything that I was like, oh, I need to remind people of this, or I need to remind myself this. I'm like, well, why isn't it in the planner?
How many years have you been doing that?
I started that planner. So this is the 5th year the planner has existed.
That's a good one.
So every year it gets pretty major updates. And I always have goals each year of things I'm testing to verify things that are going to potentially go in there. So even though the planner just came out, I already have things for next year for me to test.
To add to it.
To verify that the timing is right so that I can add it to the next year video.
If you're kind of
the next year planner.
Is it analog?
If you like writing stuff.
If you like writing stuff, her planner's awesome.
Because it comes from my factory experience. A lot of people wanted to move everything electronic, and I just had this one supervisor that him and I were teammates, and he was always like, the power of the paper. And I don't know, there's something about like holding paper in your hand and writing. And then I also I know some people have seen this, but I take pictures and I print the pictures and I put them in the weeks, because then it makes it easy for me to flip back through. Because if you see my camera roll, it's insane.
Okay,
to find.
As a digital girl, right? Because my past was IT. I can't do. This is how we're different. Like, you know,
you came from the digital space, and I'm like, and then we put our hands on it. And
then
we did stuff.
I am like so digital. So for me, like having an app, having it on my phone, having the phone in the garden with me, everything electronic, you know, like that is my thing. Because paper, like I'm like, I put it down and I can't find anything anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like digital. So if you're into digital, check out the Seed Time. If you are into pen to paper, definitely check out Jacqueline's.
And I guess the other thing is most people don't know. Well, people who know me know like the reason like I'm into planners.
Oh yeah, she's like not just garden planners.
No.
Like I found out that this girl like straight up watches short videos about people filling out planners. And I was
short
like,
videos. I watch hours of people filling out planners. I love planners. I do. I love planners. I have loved planners for a very long time.
That's so funny. It's funny the things that we're into besides just gardening.
Well, you're like calling different, like you're emailing companies being like, I have feedback on your app and your digital stuff. She will. She's like,
no, like straight up, the reason why I love Seed Time so much is because when they first came out with it, they had a beta version.
I remember you telling me about it.
And they let me, like I had just retired, right? And so I was so used to like giving feedback about like software. And so like I was like, oh, I love gardening, I'll give them feedback. They probably got so annoyed with me. I had like 100 different like requests on their beta list or whatever. Like I sent them so much feedback, like you need to change this button and this needs to be, and have you thought about Florida gardeners that gardened over the winter? Like I'm pretty sure they don't like me. So we talked about the different planning. We talked about all the resources that we use, how to stay on track, how to organize your time. I thought it would be a good little exercise for each of us to talk about like what was growing up in gardening here in our 10 years. You've been 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So what was the biggest failure point? Maybe it was unexpected, and like how you overcame that. And then we're going to get into like our biggest success tip each.
Okay. I'm going to have to think for a second because I have a lot of failures.
Same.
Lot. I think probably the one that's the biggest one, and I know I say it a lot, but I know everyone else doesn't say it as much, and it was understanding the Florida sun and how intense it was. And then trying to find that balance of like enough sun, but not too much, and it's shifting. So for me, I think I can name multiple projects, but I'll try to keep it simple. My first vegetable gardens, I baked those plants.
I think that's real common. I think a lot of people do that.
I put it on the western side of my house, up against a whitish wall.
No shade.
No shade. And I don't know what time of year I planted it, but man, the sun reflection off the house in my eyes, sunglasses, hat, those plants, I look back,
I feel bad for the little guys.
I just like, you know, those people who take like magnifying glasses and like try to hurt ants and stuff like, I feel like that's what I did to those plants.
Starting fires
and
in
it was
backyard.
Like the sandiest of soil. I think I took some like bag soil from like Home Depot and I chucked it on top, probably for an inch. That soil was so sandy.
Yeah.
The fact that it made anything is shocking to me now looking back. That like, I mean, we did do one thing right with it, is I did do a trench and dump a lot of like food scraps into it. So
was that just like a, did you know that was the thing to do?
I had seen some people's videos about using like a trenching composting method. I didn't think too far ahead about that because it's like that works once.
Yeah.
And if you did it over a long period of time, I just remember the sort of broken down food that we threw in that big trench was like, oh, that smell was awful. And I remember how sandy that soil is, and I remember those plants just looked. But you know what? It got me going.
Yeah.
But
hey, you know,
I look back and I was like, why would I feel so confident about gardening 10 years ago?
Oh my gosh, I did too. I did too. I was like, oh, I could grow a plant. And they make it look like it's so easy online. They're like, oh, just drop a seed and you'll grow whatever. No, that's not true.
It's easy once you know what you're doing.
I always say it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
That once you have figured it out, then you can repeat it really easy. Okay, my failure point.
Yeah.
You know, for me, like I always wanted to grow like super traditional veggies, and I always was watching gardeners, like for some reason, like Michigan, like the gardeners in Michigan.
M.I. Gardner was huge when you and I were getting on.
When I was first coming in, and then then you had Epic Gardening, which is West Coast, a little bit closer to ours, but not exactly. And
New Jersey, I remember New Jersey.
Oh, the James Perry. I can't say his last name. I can't say it.
Yeah.
But those guys, they were all so big. And I would follow along with what they said, and I would pick the variety. You're going to laugh. So I watch Alaska, the Simple Living Alaska,
yes,
and she mentioned like certain varieties, and I went and got those varieties thinking, oh, if she can grow them in Alaska, I can grow them in Florida.
Like, are we crazy? Same. I remember YouTube. I remember that video is getting recommended to me for Alaska, and I kept thinking to YouTube. I said, "Why are you recommending Alaska?"
I'm addicted to them though. I still watch them to this day.
I don't watch them anymore, but not for any particular reason. Then I actually know why I stopped watching them. It's because they started getting to the lumber stuff, and I have problems with listening to motors.
I remember that
from the factory. It just bothers me too much. It's not them. It's just their sound on the video.
The thing that I realized, which was my biggest failure point, is following the varieties or the vegetables that they grow in Alaska or Michigan or New Jersey or even Southern California don't always work here in Florida. We have a different dynamic. So then I started practicing, like trying different varieties that other people have told me, and then trying some that had similarities to ones that I know work. So like that's why I do, like you laugh at me all the time. I'm like Spice of Life. I grow all different kinds of varieties because I'm always trying to find stuff that works down here. Because the stuff that they say, you watch them in their videos and they're pulling cabbages the size of this out of their garden in Alaska. Well, that's because they get 23 hours of sun a day. You know what I mean? Or over on the West Coast, Jock and Kevin, they're in Epic Gardening. They're over there pulling beautiful oranges off their citrus tree. Yeah, well, we got citrus greening disease here. Like there's so many differences between the different places. So I think that you really have to consider varieties, and you have to look locally to the gardeners that are in your area, like us, or many of the other ones. There's blogs out there. There's a lot of different, you can look at UF's websites on different varieties, and then you can just kind of test it yourself to see how it does. And I think that you'll start to find varieties that work better and better in this type of climate.
Yeah.
Because that was my biggest failure point. I literally grew cabbage that did well in Alaska down here. It did not do well down here. All right, now let's talk about success. If you could give just one suggestion to the viewers right here, what would it be to make them successful? First year garden. This is their first year.
I'm going to go, I know so many of you guys enjoy Patrina and me for vegetables, but I'm going to say it. Nothing's going to make you more confident about growing in Florida than growing a native plant.
Oh, it's so true.
And I learned and figured out so much for my vegetable garden by having native plants. Because I could watch what they did naturally, and it got me to stop stressing about things that vegetables were doing, because I was like, oh, well, the native plants are doing it, and they're growing great.
Right.
And so
it helps you with the seasons too, because native plants behave in different ways as you move through a season. So you, like, as you get more mature into your gardening journey, like you're going to notice that just because we say summer starts in like May down here, the plants are going to tell you if it's starting a little bit early or a little bit late. Native plants will tell you for sure.
And if I was going to give you one plant, I would say get a fire bush.
Oh, yes.
And here's why. If you're a vegetable gardener, I'm telling you, get a fire bush, because it is a powerhouse native plant. It is going to bring in pollinators for all your warm weather crops that need pollinators. So whether you're getting squashes, they'll bring in the little bees, the big bees. They'll help you with your tomato harvest, eggplant, everything. 1, 2, it's going to bring in birds. The birds are going to be looking for the caterpillars on your vegetables. 3, the ladybugs and the predatory wasps. This is not yellow jackets.
Right, not the mean ones.
Lacewings all love this plant too. You will have a much more balanced system around your vegetable garden by having this one plant.
Oh, don't forget. Oh, go ahead.
And this one plant, you can have it as a short hedge, a privacy hedge. You can shape it up like a tree. It is so versatile.
Use it for shade. Put it on the west side of your garden and give your garden some shade with it.
It is so versatile. It is a great plant to have. It will help your vegetable garden on so many fronts.
It's so pretty too. Like the red and stuff. It's so beautiful.
So I would just say, get yourself a fire bush. And that's my one tip, right?
Yeah, one tip.
And honestly, that was one of my early successes in the garden, was learning everything there was to know about fire bushes.
Yeah, it's a great plant. You gave me one And it grows up in my area. Even when it gets cold, it freezes to the ground, bounces right back.
Well, your first time here.
Remember, you're like, she snatched it out of the ground, and she's like, here you go. Didn't even hand a pot or nothing. I'm like, is it going to be okay?
I think I grabbed a solo cup and I went, there. Or one of those, like, Bonnie burping cups. Yeah, and I was like, there you go.
And I took it home, and I was like being real, because I'm used to fussy vegetables. So I'm like, I get it in the ground really quick, and then that thing needs nothing from me. And it tells me everything about the season changes. But okay, so my number one tip.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, and I'm going to keep saying it because I feel like it's something that, it's not focused on enough. And it's going to be that even though soil isn't sexy, soil is so important.
Especially for vegetable gardening.
For vegetable gardening, I mean, you could go less with the natives because they are used to growing in Florida sandy soil, so they don't need a lot of that. But if you want to grow like flowering plants, you want to grow fruit trees, you want to grow vegetables, you need to get serious about your soil. Mm-hmm. But I know that concept of getting serious about soil fertility, a lot of people talk about it. Soil is what feeds your plants. But what does that mean? What does organic materials mean? What does all that stuff mean? Mm-hmm. I actually recently did a video on the schedule that I follow, but really it's about adding things to your soil that your plants can eat. And that could mean fertilizer, right? But I'm thinking more compost. Compost is huge. It's like one of the best things that I ever did for my garden was starting a compost pile. And people make it seem like compost is super complicated. It doesn't need to be complicated, guys. Just chuck a bunch of stuff in a pile, in a bucket, in a garbage can, whatever you want. And just let it sit and rot for a while. It's gross, I know, but it works really well. The plants I always say my plants are little gross little things because they like stuff like that. They like rotting garbage. Mulch, like organic mulches. I'm not talking about like the rubber mulches that you find at the store. Natural mulches. And you can, like when you trim your trees, when you trim your plants, all of that can be used as mulch. And it doesn't even have to be broken down into a pretty way. Mulch doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be organic and clean and like something that can feed the soil. You can even grow plants like firebush, like moringa, like Mexican sunflower. I know that's
Don't grow Mexican sunflower.
She's not gonna like it, but
not the one that's a class one invasive. No,
the invasive one. I know.
No, don't grow that one.
She does not like that.
There's one that you can grow that's not invasive, and there's one that's invasive. Don't grow that one.
Don't grow the invasive. Grow the non-invasive because it grows very quickly. So all of those plants, elderberries, they grow very, very quickly, and you can chop them a lot.
Elderberry's native.
Elderberry's native. I do lemongrass as well as a way to do an organic mulch. Like there's a lot of plants that you can grow just specifically to be your mulch.
I use my tomato plants as my mulch all the time because they just are so ridiculous.
They produce a lot. I use my lemongrass a lot now. I used to use my moringa a lot, but now I'm using a lot of lemongrass because it's got to be cut back anyway to make it look halfway decent. So I would say, really focus on the soil because I think if you can focus on your soil, you're going to build soil life. You're going to build bug activity, the good bugs. You'll reduce your pests. You'll reduce your fertilizer needs. You'll feed your plants. And the healthier your plants are, the more likely they'll produce a lot, and they can fend off disease and they can fend off pests a lot easier.
I think it's a great tip.
I think yours was a great tip too.
Thanks.
I love it. She got me into native plants. I wasn't even into native plants. Now I grow a lot of them. Salt and pepper. I'm going to throw that one out there. That's my favorite. The one that you got me into was the salt and pepper plant. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today, guys. We really enjoyed talking all about how to get your garden more productive. And if you want to see our top 3 picks of per season of the different crops that we like to grow in our garden, make sure to check out this video right here. Happy gardening, guys.